Hey everyone, I'm Sari Arambulo. I play Abby in Bloody Axe Wound, and you're here with Pop Culture with Pat.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So excited to be joined by today's guests. Today I'm talking to Sari Arambulo. We are talking about the film Bloody Axe Wound. She plays Abby. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So I'm going to give you guys a heads up. There might be some spoilers here in some of the questions. So if you guys haven't seen the film, make sure you guys check it out. I definitely give it my recommendation as a big horror fan. So make sure you guys go check it out. But without further ado, Sarah, I wanted to ask you just what was your relationship with the horror genre kind of coming into this film initially?
That's a great question. So in terms of horror, I am a huge scaredy cat. I will preface by saying that. I think my favorite horror movie is Midsummer because it takes place in the broad daylight. So in terms of my horror experience, I'm a huge scaredy cat and like I've always wanted to act in one, but I am like just a scaredy cat. But it was always something I've wanted to do. I think there's something so amazing about horror and in terms of like the emotions and like the ride and roller coaster it can take you on. So it's always been on my radar as something I've like wanted to do and I've gotten close on like different projects. I would say like my bread and butter is like more of the comedic world. So being able to blend like the horror comedy with the comedic timing was like perfect for me. So
Yeah, so that must have, I mean, there's so much that you can do with the horror genre too. There's so many different subgenres that you can go into. Like here, I mean, for example, it's a horror comedy, but there's just so many different angles that you can kind of approach horror to, which I think makes it a lot of fun. In this story in particular, so with Abby, I really liked how going into the film, she's this outsider who wants to take up the mantle of being a killer, but then she ends up going to school, meets some other outsiders, and decides to, maybe I don't want to necessarily at least kill these, particular kids, and just kind of has that like, that back and forth with herself. So what was it like to go on that journey with this character in the movie?
oh, it was honestly such a gift. I am just grateful to Matt for seeing me as like his Abby and like being the vessel for this character was just the best like gift. Um, and it was just really fun. I love like coming of age and I think like Abby is like the perfect character to play because she really goes on a huge journey of like self-discovery and like she is comes from this world of and this is like all she knows and this is what her dad has taught her. And then throughout the film, like you get to see her grow like as a woman and like into her own and into her sexuality and so being able to play a character that was so three-dimensional and like seeing her journey from the beginning to end was really gratifying for sure.
And you mentioned too that you come from more of a comedy background, so this was kind of your first foray into the horror genre. What was it like getting to kind of blend those two elements? Because I imagine it seems like it was just a lot of fun working on the movie, like overall.
Yes. First of all, it was summer camp, and also it was truly the hardest thing I've ever done. I called it Bloody Boot Camp. It was like an 18-day shoot. We were shooting in the middle of the summer in the Hudson Valley, in like these beautiful
It
locations
must
and
have been
in
hot.
nature. It was hot. And we did like fun fact since you've seen it, like the final sequence was like it's so intense and that was like in broad daylight and like in the heat like very very
Ah,
hot and so days are shorter because it's the summer so like every Friday was a Friday and we're like shooting overnights like all the time and it was hard like physically I'd say and then kind of like I'm so grateful to like Matt and the producers, but especially Matt, who's like the writer and director and like created this world, who sort of like held my hand through this whole process and like kind of I mean it was a bit hard for me at first to like kind of figure out exactly what tone we were going for. There were great like mood boards and like I obviously read the script, but like it was great to like hear from Matt specifically like his vision and how he saw this world because it is very specific of like you know a fine line of hitting the horror and like having those smaller like more intense moments, coupled with those hilarious, like laugh out loud comedic beats. So I really did lean on Matt to sort of be able to like guide me through or just like have a check-in of, hey, is this working for you? Is this like the sort of tone you're going for? Um and yeah, there were like great references. Like even when I think about the mood board I saw like from the very beginning, there was it's like camp, so it's sort of like Jennifer's Body, but then there's also like Cabin in the Woods vibes. And so it's funny, I remember like in prep with Matt, we talked about like first of all we're huge music lovers, so we exchanged like playlists. He had made a playlist for my character, I had made one for mine as
Soundtrack is
well.
so good in this
I
film.
oh it is we're so lucky to have Jeff who was in his first feature Uncle Peckerhead and also is a musician. He did the music. His band is called 500 Bucks. He's so good. He even gave me like a vinyl on set of like their
Oh, that's
music.
cool.
Really cool. But we use that as sort of like a reference for setting the tone and like getting into the vibe of the world. And we kept coming back to this word that was bouncy. Like we described Abby's energy and like her journey as bouncy. And for some reason that really resonated with me and kind of helped like carve out those moments. Um, because it is horror, but it has this sort of beat to it. So yeah, it was just like really fun trying to like intertwine and interweave all those nuances together.
Yeah, it was like a punk rock horror comedy, and it could be very tough sometimes too to have that balance in that. Like you said, with the horror elements, the comedy elements, like sometimes you could find it, some films can kind of go one way or the other, and they don't do
Yeah.
necessarily the greatest job like balancing it. So, but I thought you guys did, a fantastic job here, and I did like. There's definitely a number of references. I mean, also just being at camp makes me think of Friday the 13th, Jason Voorhees. There's a particular scene with your character that I'm sure Matt probably told you, but when you're in the classroom and then you look outside and see your father out
Oh,
there, I was like, definitely right out of Halloween, like the
of
original film.
course. Had
So
to.
going into it, I'm curious, did he give you kind of any homework as far as, hey, I want you to watch like a couple of these movies just to kind of get yourself in the headspace going into this film, or
He actually didn't,
okay,
which was really nice. But I did my own prep and I think what was really helpful, kind of what I was saying was like was being able to talk to him. And like even going back to what we were talking about of like the pacing of it, I think was the most challenging part of like having to figure out is it because horror is like slower and then
yep.
there's also comedy that is like faster. So it'd be fun like even with scenes with me and Eddie who plays Glenn in the film, we would do our scenes like really fast because
Yeah.
that's like we banter and like that's we have such a rapport. And Matt would sometimes be like, "That's great, like slower," and we're like, "Slower? What do
Wait,
you mean
what?
slower?" So that was something that was really fun to play around with. But in terms of my homework, I again like I'm a huge music lover, so I ended up making a playlist and like exchanging that with Matt and sort of like seeing how how we sort of like melded our minds and set and like we're able to see what kind of character Abby could be and like the world. And then I also like watched Jennifer's Body. That was like something that
It's a
was
good
in
one.
yeah. And it feel Jennifer's Body is like camp, but it's so truthful and like you're so invested in these characters. So I definitely watched that one. And of course I watched Uncle Peckerhead,
Yep.
which was Matt's first feature and just the best. And that definitely helped me get a good sense of tone and kind of what he was going for.
So even though kind of like horror comedies, how were you watching those films? Because I know you said you're a scaredy cat. Were you okay like watching those
I
movies
closed
or
my eyes the whole time. Honestly, when I was watching Uncle Peckerhead for the first time, because it's a slasher, like there's the
yeah.
gore and those amazing practical elements. I don't think I was prepared, and I was literally like my face the entire time was like, oh my God. But it's like one of those things where you like can't look away. It's
Yeah.
just like so fun and like so satisfying to see. Um, so
That's
yeah,
so cool.
I was kind of like this for a bit and then also was like, but
It's always fun to have people who, do these horror films that maybe have never, like yourself, like never really been into the genre or just kind of like, scared of watching them, which totally understand. But it's always fun, kind of you guys then getting to hear your experience working on a horror film. And I'm sure it probably helped too, like while filming some of the stuff, like you said, like towards the end, where it was during the day, you're probably like, oh, thank God, this is like I can work with this. It's during the day. We're not doing, like a night show.
Yes, exactly. And it's like I don't know, it's a different experience. I think like in post-production and when you see it, it's like the
Yeah.
color grade's different, like it's like the music's there. But when you're in the moment to moment, it's just, you're like in those emotions. And it can be really intense and like you have to act scared and you're like just thrown into it. So yeah, it's really fun to see like have the onset experience and then see it like the real thing after.
And one of my other favorite things too about this film is that you work at a video store, which I loved because growing up, that was my thing. I went there every weekend, went to rent movies with my parents. So it was just really cool to see that in this film. And video stores, one of the big things with them is just having the staff recommendations. So I'm curious for you, just in general, doesn't have to be from a particular genre, but what are just some movies that you would recommend to people? What would be your staff picks that you would recommend if you were running
Oh,
a video store?
that's a fun question. And yeah, I like going off what you said, like the movie store idea was like immediately when read that, I was like, this is such a cool concept. And I miss blockbusters.
Yeah.
So
I got to
I
visit
would
an
say,
old one recently where I went to Rhode Island Comic Con and they brought there's one remaining blockbuster that's out in Oregon and they had them come out and do like a pop-up setup one there.
oh,
So it
going
was
on
really
Oregon.
fun
Isn't
just to
there
kind of
an Airbnb as well? Like you can
yeah,
sleep there.
yeah, I think you can do an
Yeah.
Airbnb there too, which that would be really fun to do. But yeah, so they brought it out here and like set it up and just it was fun seeing all the VHS tapes and stuff like on the walls and everything because
Oh
that
my
was just such a
God.
staple of my childhood. But
Oh,
yeah,
that's
sorry,
awesome.
you can go
Oh
ahead.
yeah, no, go ahead. No, all good. Okay. So I would recommend, okay, first of all, Amelie is like hands down my favorite movie.
Good
I just
choice.
yeah. So Amelie, I'm a huge like Francophile, so always great to practice some French. And then what else would I say? Oh, one of my favorite movies as well is The Devil Wears Prada.
Okay,
That's a
yep.
movie I've seen so many times. It is so quotable. I was just talking about it yesterday. Like the amount of times I reference that film. Um,
That's like me with
and then-
Scream. That's like
oh,
probably that's my
really?
favorite movie of all time.
Oh,
So
that's so good.
yeah.
And then something a bit more in like the indie film world in terms of like tonally. I really love the Before trilogy, like Richard Linklater.
I haven't
Um,
haven't haven't seen that. Haven't
oh,
seen
it's the
this.
one with
Yeah.
like Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. It's like about a couple.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'll have to check that
And
out then.
yeah, yeah. It's like basically two people who meet on a train and they kind of like fall in love and then they end up like being like, okay, let's meet in a new city and the next film's in a different city. So of course the one that is my favorite out of the trilogy is the one that's in Paris.
Yeah.
So that's Before Sunset. It's like before sunrise, before sunset, and before midnight.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, and then one more. I'm like going through like my letterboxed like favorites in my brain. And ooh, okay. Okay, one of my favorite films I saw this year was La Chimera,
Okay. I
by
didn't see
Josh
that one.
O'Connor. Yeah, the world it's just like a really amazing film, and Josh O'Connor speaking Italian. And then also I'd say Remember the Titans. I love sports
Classic.
movies, just
Yeah.
like a classic that I will always watch. And Marcel the Shell. That's my last one.
Oh, that's another one that I still haven't seen yet, but I remember seeing the trailer for it and wanted to check it out. So
Really?
I'm gonna have to put that on my list to check
Yeah,
out
but
soon then.
I grew up with like Marcel the Shell. Like I would quote it all the time as a kid, and then when they made the movie, it just like it wrecked me. And then I was like, I have to go watch it again, and I'm bringing my entire family to watch this movie. So yeah.
Well, I think that's some we got some pretty good picks there. Well-rounded selection, I feel like overall too.
You. Something for everyone.
Yep, yeah, exactly. In the film, you and Molly, I think, have great chemistry. So, what was it like just you guys working together and kind of developing that chemistry on set, just having that back and forth between your characters?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's great because I love Molly so deeply. I always say, I've said this in every interview. I'm like, I've never become faster friends with someone on set. Like, we met and it was immediately like, oh, we're friends. And like, she's definitely like now like a friend for life that I like
That's
love
awesome.
dearly. Yeah, and like she and I don't even know. Like basically when we both we it was like officially our roles. We like hopped on a call and kind of just like became friends. And then Molly and I actually were we relocated to upstate New or Hudson Valley, and we had a couple days to just like prep and sort of like get into the zone and get into the world and rehearse. So it was literally like summer camp, and we were in the same hotel, and like we'd go and spend time in each other's hotel rooms and like help each other with self tapes and like just got to know each other. And like it's so easy to love Molly. Clearly like you'll see in the film, or you saw in the film.
Yeah, I'll say
Um
the chemistry. That's why I feel like it kind of comes across like on screen that it seems like you guys must have got along great because just the chemistry with you guys is amazing. So
yeah.
that
Thank
makes
you
a lot
so
of sense
much.
that you guys just kind of like clicked, like I guess like right away.
Yeah, it really was very magical, like such a magical friendship. And then when I've even seen it on screen, I'm like, wow, like I got giddy and was like, I need them to like have this moment. And yeah, and I think that's a testament to Molly as well, and like what an amazing actor she is and how she's able to like just like truly connect. And it was a really fun shoot, and we got to hang out and like get dinners and like just become family. I think that's like my favorite part about making movies is like you get to bond and like become family with these people for like a very intense period of time. And we're still friends today. Like I was there when Molly was like starting to date like her girlfriend, and like they were getting together, and now like we're all friends. Like we had a book club while we were on set. We read this book called Tomorrow, 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 and we got the entire set, like other people to read it. Like our stunt coordinator was reading it.
That's really cool.
So yeah, it was just the best. She is just wonderful. And also watch Dexter. She's killing it.
Yeah, I was say now she's killing it on Dexter. So hopefully, I hope in the future we get to have you guys like on another project that you guys, whether it's a movie or a TV series, just for you guys get the chance to work again. I'm sure both of you would enjoy that. Just so obviously we
Yeah.
become such good friends, and it's crazy how that can work sometimes too. You work on these projects, and sometimes it's not very long, but you develop these relationships with people that last a lifetime, and just you never know.
Yeah, for real. Feel very lucky. So.
Yeah, for sure. And now, I guess like with you guys working together too, like, is there a favorite scene that you guys have with each other that was just like your favorite, like whether filming or even seeing it like afterwards, like on the screen?
Yeah. I have so many. Like even when I was watching this movie, I'm like chuckling to myself because I'm thinking about like what we were doing behind the scenes. And what we were doing behind the scenes was laughing and giggling at each other. Okay, I would say one of our favorite scenes was the locker scene when we first meet.
Yep.
That was just so much fun to shoot and like feed off of her energy because she's just so cool.
Very intimidating. If
And
the
very
scene where she
intimidating.
says, where she's like, "You gonna narc?"
Yes, yes, so good. And then the bleacher scene, I
That
think
was a good
is
scene.
another one of mine because it's just the two of them, and they're sorry, kind of spoiler, but they're like, having this small moment that might lead to something more. And like, I think it's just a beautiful scene because it really takes its time. Like it is that like true quintessential coming of age moment where like two people are coming together. So I'd say that one. And then a fun, like just a silly favorite scene is the end scene.
Oh man.
When I won't say a lot, but basically in this end scene, the reason why I love it so much is I could not for the life of me stop laughing. I was laughing and then was like I was crying, like having to hold it together to then like do the
And
scene.
Matt's just like, "Come on,
Molly,
guys, let's go."
exactly. I mean, I was able to do it. It was
Yeah.
just in between takes. I was crying because Molly is basically like we're doing our own stunt. So like Molly is running behind me, and there's something so it was just so funny to me that she was just like running back and forth, running back and forth, behind us, and we had this like hilarious group chat with like one of the crew members on set, and it's like Molly like covered in like dirt and like mud, like caked in it, and like our friend Reed, he was like he like had a caption that was like woman in coal mine survives the explosion like circa like 1800, and we're like anyway, it was just like the best silly moment, so yeah.
No, that and the first scene that you're talking about too, that's probably like one of my favorites in the film. I always love those, just small like intimate moments where, like you said, where characters are just really kind of coming together, getting to know each other, listening to the music, in that case. That yeah, that was definitely one of my favorite scenes because it's always fun to have the action and you got the blood spilling everywhere with a horror film like this. But yeah, that was one of the standouts for me for sure too. So that's really cool
Oh,
that you brought that up.
I'm so glad. Wait, the locker one or the bleacher one?
The bleacher one, sorry. The bleacher
Bleacher
one.
one. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah. But so much fun. I mean, in the end, I won't go into specifics, but I wasn't expecting the one part at the say without giving anything away, what happens to a character I wasn't expecting. And then the very, very end, I thought that was really cool too. And we'll talk about it like afterwards, like real quick.
yeah, of course. Yeah,
But yeah,
and it's cool because like I will say Matt, like when we were prepping, like his brain is brilliant, just so brilliant. He has created so much of this world where there's like prequels,
yeah.
sequels, like there's so much more than what you just see like on screen.
I honestly, so watching it, I was like, I mean, love that we're getting a film, but I was like, I honestly could have seen this thing being almost like a series, like a television series in a
Oh,
way,
yeah.
because I could have seen something like where of the week or something, like you're going after a specific student at the school, and like each episode could have had something like that. But then there's also a lot of lore that's introduced in this movie too, that I was like, this guy had to have like I feel like a big notebook or something filled with just
Oh.
kind of what this all means, where could potentially go with this, and so that's what it kind of what it sounds like from what you're saying.
That's exactly what Matt does. We talked about like writing process, and he literally like will fill an entire notebook of just the world and then start writing the script. And I'm like, you are incredible. But yeah, I agree. It would be so fun to do as a series just because there's so much there to explore.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, did you get it? Obviously, I'm not going to ask you like any specifics about if you did, but did you get a chance to kind of go into that notebook and see some of the potential ideas for prequels, sequels, or anything like that?
I didn't get to see the actual notebook, but I was told of different things that would happen in a prequel or a sequel. So yeah,
That's
it's
really
really
exciting.
exciting to see what like his brain can come up with, and what sort of directions and stories would be explored as well.
I really hope that we get that. So fingers crossed. And I guess for you too. So not only was this your first horror film, but what was just the experience like of getting to work on a horror film where there's a lot of blood, gore, things like that. You're covered in mud. What was it like working with the special effects? Because I'm sure that's a really interesting experience if it's something that you haven't done a lot previously, like in your career.
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, shout out Jared. Like he also did, this is our special effects guy. He also did Uncle Peckerhead. He's like Matt's like go-to man.
Yeah,
Um, Incredible. And like I think what's amazing about this movie is that it's basically like all practical effects.
which I
So
love
being
as a
able,
horror fan.
yeah, I'm sure. And like that's what I've heard from other horror fans as well. And it's just amazing to be able to see someone's like talent so like viscerally and like see that firsthand. So just and like the prosthetics, like for my dad, played by the amazing Billy Burke. I love that man. And so he was in prosthetics, like he had to get ready and be in hair, makeup, and prosthetics for like 4 hours every time he was on set. So
I can
like
imagine.
I never even saw what Billy looked like as a normal person. Like every time I saw him, he was already like blade cut.
That's so funny.
So there's like that element going on, plus like all the blood and so many stunts. Like on AP Bio and like other projects I've done, like I've had different props and I've had different like things like that, but it's more like phones and more like just, everyday things. But this was like, here's a knife and like here's an axe, obviously. And figuring out it was really fun working with props. And try James, our prop master, is great. And like I'd even get to like choose like what kind of axe do you want? Do you want this one or this one?
Oh,
Like
that's
what
fun.
steel is great? What works for you? So that was also a really fun element to like really help bring the character to life for me. I'm a very like physical person, and then also just doing like all my own stunts. There was one moment where I did have a stunt double. I think it was in the car, but other than that, that is like all me. And that is
Yeah.
all my blood, sweat, and tears. And
A
so,
shout out to you, man, for doing
oh, thank
all those
you.
stunts because
Yeah, I
some of
and I
those
had
can be
a
pretty hard.
blast. Like, yeah, truly it was I'm like a super I grew up playing sports and like it was just so fun to like really get into this character and like embody who she was and be able to like be a killer and like what does that mean? And sort of just like go all in. So,
And you talked about working with Billy too, but just what was it like developing kind of that interesting father-daughter relationship that you guys share in the film too?
yeah. So like for those like main relationships, I wanted to like establish that even before we got on set. So like for example, like Molly and I hopped on a call, and like Billy and I were able to talk before we even like stepped foot on set just to like build that rapport. And also fun fact, like I like loved Twilight like as a kid. Like that's what I grew up with. So
Yeah.
like for me, when I was told that Billy Burke was playing my father, I like died. I literally was like, "Wait, you're telling me that Charlie Swan is going to be my dad? I get to see." And I was like,
You're
I
like,
made
is
this
this really
note.
happening? It
I know, and like he's actually best friends with Jeffrey Dean Morgan, who's like one of our producers and also was in the film.
was cool seeing
And
him. Yeah.
so, yeah, it's just cool. Like, and he was just so lovely and like so welcoming towards me, and that man was a trooper because those prosthetics like it's like tough like being in the chair for that long and then like it's hard to talk like it's hard to eat like he
Yeah.
really and you can't tell at all and he also has a daughter and like I'm so I grew up like doing lots of things with my dad and so it was kind of fun to sort of just like play into that and get to know him like throughout the process. So yeah, he is some of my favorite moments from the film are with him and like just he's hilarious.
Yeah, it was really fun to see that relationship play out and evolve like throughout the film. But yeah, I can only imagine, especially too, where you said it was hot, when you guys were filming too. So having the amount of prosthetics on there too, that can be a lot, especially if you're wearing it for, 12, 14 hours, however long you guys were going for individual days. But
Yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, shout out to him too for just being a trooper and getting through that.
I know. He was the true MVP.
And just to wrap things up for you, Sarah, is there anything else that you would like to say, about the experience of working on the film, and where can fans just stay up to date with your work moving forward as well?
Oh, thanks so much. Yeah, I mean, I'll just say that Bloody Axe Wound was the one of the best experiences I've ever had, like as an actor. It truly was a gift. It was, again, like I said, like the hardest thing I've done, but it really gave me so much confidence and like joy and I had never led a film in this way. And so getting the opportunity to like be number one and like set the tone for the set and was such a gift and such a pleasure and everyone like became friends and my goal on my set was like I was like I want to know everyone's name. Like it's like crazy when you don't know people's names on set and you've been there for so many days and like you don't get to like have like a relationship and I also am a filmmaker so I like understand that like just creating that sort of environment is really important and like so being given an opportunity to be able to do that and like just fully like lean into the whole experience was just such a joy. So whenever people tell me that they love Bloody Axe Wound, I'm like, that makes me so happy because I truly had the best time making it. And yeah, in terms of like where you can follow me, you can find me on Instagram at sari.arambulo. And yeah, still like just doing the acting thing and I actually just shot a movie in New Jersey right before the new year. So another, can't say too much, but another horror. I'm like, ooh, this is maybe
Ooh,
my new
nice.
thing. So yeah, look out for that. And then I'm also a filmmaker and a director and producer. So I have my own writing projects. Like I have a feature film that's like in development, and I have a documentary that I'm literally have a coloring session today
Oh wow.
that I'm gonna work on. So yeah, keep him busy and yeah.
Well, thank
And
you
check
so
out
much.
AP Bio. That's also on Netflix.
Yeah,
If
no.
you
Yeah,
that
thank
too.
you. I just first off, I want to say, especially with, where you're doing that today. Thank you so much for your time today, because it seems like,
Oh, of
yeah, you
course.
definitely got a busy schedule with everything going on. Like I told you before, I absolutely love this film. It feels like one of those movies, those gems that I would have discovered at a video store, and it just goes on to become like a cult classic for me. So this is going to be one of those movies I can see myself going back watching over and over again. And fingers crossed, I really hope that we do get sequels, prequels to this project, because I feel like,
Yeah.
like we talked about, I think there's a lot to explore here, and it'd be really fun to see you guys come back. So
I know. I
fingers
would
crossed
love
for
that.
you.
Fingers crossed. But yeah, and it actually just got released on VOD and like digital streaming today.
So make sure you
Um,
guys go check it out, because I don't know if I know it had like a limited theatrical release there for
mhm.
like a couple weeks. So if
Yeah.
it's still in theaters, definitely go check it out, because I'm all about seeing, movies in the theaters. But if it's not playing local near you, just definitely go and make sure and watch it on video on demand. Sari, thank you so much for your time. I can't wait to see your upcoming work, especially, I mean, all your work, but especially the horror project, just where I said that's kind of like my favorite genre. But I can't wait to check everything else out, and you're welcome back anytime in the future.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for having me. This was such a joy. So, yeah, thank you so much. Hey everyone, I'm Sari Arambulo. I play Abby in Bloody Axe Wound, and you're here with Pop Culture with Pat.